Katherine Ryan. I called out Predator. Is this Schofield? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Last year, I analysed a declaration by the comedienne Katherine Ryan, where she identified a predator operating within the entertainment industry on television in the United Kingdom. Many of you will be aware of the press frenzy that has originated just recently in relation to the well-known, at least in the United Kingdom, British television host and presenter Phillip Schofield. There has been considerable press coverage in relation to his conduct and behaviour. Schofield, who was once very much loved by a significant proportion of the British public as a competent presenter and seen as that kind of kindly figure that would sit on the sofa entertaining with a degree of childish humour, but at the same time seen as an accessible everyman. He's fallen from grace with regard to allegations of his conduct. More of this will be examined in due course, but I thought it would be worthwhile for you to revisit the video that I created analysing what Katherine Ryan had to say, so that you can put your narc-detecting skills to use to determine, do you think that she's describing Phillip Schofield? Was that the predator that she was calling out? Does it now accord with the information that has started to come to light about Mr. Schofield, or does it not? And also, if you believe that that behaviour does accord with him, does that in turn mean that you're looking at a narcissist? See what you think. Here comes the video again. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. You may well have seen in the news the resurrection of allegations made by Katherine Ryan, the comedian. Back in June 2022, it was reported, as per the Times, written by Peter Chappell and Mario Ledwith, that the comedian Katherine Ryan has said that she confronted a colleague on a television programme because she believed he was a sexual abuser. Now, of course, many of you will be fully remembering the #MeToo movement, where a number of men were vilified and named by a number of victims, or survivors as they prefer to be known as, with regard to the way that these men had treated them, largely within the entertainment industry. Harvey Weinstein was a prominent casualty of that, which resulted in him going to prison for a substantial period of time. And I analysed Weinstein under a very Hollywood narcissist to demonstrate that he is one, and that was the driver behind his behaviours, not something that other people had necessarily picked up upon. In the United Kingdom, there was Operation Yewtree, which was a police operation to look into the historic allegations of sexual abuse against certain well-known personalities, which found that individuals such as Rolf Harris, the Australian, Stuart Hall, were, amongst others, accused and convicted of various sex offences involving children and adults with regard to inappropriate sexual behaviour with them on an historic basis. Of course, Jimmy Savile went to the grave before he was exposed with regard to a catalogue of sexual offences towards people, both living and dead. Therefore, it has become something of greater prominence that behaviours that were once brushed to one side in the 60s, 70s, 80s and even the 90s as, well, that's just the way that X is, has resulted in many people coming forward. Of course, there are collateral consequences which arise with such activities, one of which is that where there is speculation made about certain persons' behaviour but they're not named, that then becomes trial by public opinion, with a number of people's names being put forward who then have a difficulty in terms of demonstrating it's not them, because they call upon the accuser to confirm it isn't them, but they will not do so, and thus they become subjected to speculation, which can be career-ending. We recall the false allegations that were made against John Leslie, the television personality, that resulted in him seeing his career fall off a cliff. And therefore, the motivations of individuals that come forward are also to be scrutinised in such situations. As I had explained in an early article I wrote some years ago about the Me Too movement, that it of course was predicated on the experience of many genuine victims, but also there were narcissists in the mix. Some of those narcissists were the victims of other narcissists. That can happen. There is a collision. Other instances, of course, narcissists like to jump on bandwagons, and because of their victim mentality, and in instances where there's the opportunity to assert control over somebody that slighted them some time ago, i.e. to get some form of revenge, an opportunity to accuse somebody of having sexually abused them is often too good an opportunity for certain narcissists to let go. I know, for instance, that there's a particular narcissist that frequents my blog and is quite simply not only a narcissist but batshit crazy, and launched a lawsuit against Harvey Weinstein, believing that she had been abused by him. I've seen the papers. It was kicked out. He'd never even met her, which shows the level of delusion that that particular narcissist was operating under. But also the way that she jumped onto a bandwagon of seeing other people accuse him, and essentially her narcissism thought, we'll have some of that also, in order to assert control over people by way of sympathy, to gain fuel from their reactions, and undoubtedly residual benefit of seeking compensation for the false allegations that were made against him. In other instances, narcissists will lend credence to these movements because they want to be seen to manage that facade by way of being sympathetic, and invariably will suddenly come forth with their own story to tell. There are many instances where not famous people have found themselves falsely accused of raping somebody, only for there to be no evidence to support it whatsoever. And of course, invariably, the individual who is the accuser has done so because they want to assert control over that person, because perhaps they'd rejected them romantically, and one way to get back at them, this is often done by certain female narcissists, is to make a false accusation of rape. Not only, of course, is this problematic towards the person who's accused, because they are invariably named whilst their accuser retains anonymity until a later juncture at least, but also it then makes it more difficult for the genuine victims of sexual abuse, sexual offences, to be taken seriously. They face an uphill battle as it is to often be believed and to secure convictions, and the behaviour of certain narcissists in bandying around false accusations makes their task all the more difficult. Accordingly, it is an area which is most interesting in terms of analysis vis-à-vis, of course, the behaviours of a predatory individual who is invariably a narcissist, because behaving in that way shows a sense of entitlement, an absence of boundary recognition, an absence of emotional empathy for the victims affected, and the use of sex as a means to manipulate people, emotionally blackmailing them, threatening them, securing that residual benefit of having sex with them or some form of sexual conduct, and their responses providing fuel. It also provides an opportunity to understand the mindset of those who are victims of it, and those narcissists that make false accusations about sexual abuse, either against someone who's entirely innocent or bandwagoning in relation to somebody who is guilty of such behaviours, but not towards them. It really is an area which is ripe for the narcissistic dynamic. Returning to Katherine Ryan, the Times article explains, Ryan, 38, said she called the unnamed man a predator to his face in front of others every day while working on the show. The Canadian-Irish comic, who lives in London and has appeared on programmes including Have I Got News for You, Never Mind the Buzzcocks, and 8 out of 10 Cats, was speaking to her fellow comedian Sarah Pascoe about abuse in show business. I've done a show with a person who I and you believe is a predator. What am I supposed to do? Ryan said. I've thought about that, but it's such a messy thing because I don't have proof. What, am I not supposed to feed my children because of someone else? I raised it. I called him a predator to his face and in front of everyone every day. Now, assuming this person is indeed a predator and therefore may well be a narcissist, what would Ryan's behaviour do? Well, the fact that she called him out in front of all of the other people is fuel. She's giving an emotional reaction to him, but naturally you will understand that it's challenge fuel, because she's saying that he's a predator. She's basically saying that he's a very unpleasant individual, engaging in unpleasant behaviours, and that threatens his sense of control. Undoubtedly, the individual would deny it, and then go on to perhaps accuse her of being crazy, of being unfair. He might dole out a pity play to other people, say, "Can you believe that she's accusing me of this?" Or he may just withdraw and walk away with a smirk. The receipt of the fuel causing him to feel validated, while at the same time nullifying the threat to control posed by her accusations of simply walking away. The article continues. Pascoe said she knew the identity of the man. It is not clear where or when the confrontation took place, or whether the man faced any consequences. They were speaking on Ryan's new Amazon Prime show, Backstage with Katherine Ryan, which was released on Thursday. This is back in June this year. Pascoe said that in a separate incident, she had reported a celebrity colleague to producers after she was called by a viewer who claimed to have been raped by him. Pascoe, 41, said, "Have you ever done a job and then someone's contacted you and said, 'That's my rapist'? I had it on a job recently where I've had to go to the channel. And it's that whole thing because you feel such a sense of responsibility, but you also want it to be dealt with. Well, it's so complicated." Speaking to the Sunday Times before the episode was released, Ryan said, "That has never happened to me, but there have been jobs that I have considered not taking because there is someone on it who is potentially predatory. And then I am like, so what are we to do? Just take ourselves out of the industry? That is not a protest anyone cares about. Or do I take the job to feed my children because I didn't rape anyone? In the end, you just have to weigh up all those opportunities and think what is going to make a difference." Broadcasters including Channel 4, ITV and the BBC are being approached for comment on Ryan's allegations against the unnamed colleague. She told The Times that discussing such behaviour publicly was not about cancelling anyone or outing anyone. She said, "I do believe that as a general rule, if you wish to get to the bottom of predatory behaviour, rather than just sensationalising what women say, you should ask the men and stop asking us." Ryan lives in North London with her husband Bobby Kustra, their baby Fred, and a 12-year-old daughter from past relationship whom she raised in part as a single mother. She told the Sunday Times that she was in a WhatsApp group of 160 female comedians where they share advice, including people to avoid in the industry. She said, "I don't know if it's because we're a gang of misfits thrown together, but we are all so reunited." So that's what Katherine Ryan had to say back in June. But it's come up again in an interview that she had just recently with Louis Theroux, reported by The Sun, and Roderick McPhee. Katherine Ryan says the star she accused of being a predator on a TV show has sexually assaulted people, and despite it being an open secret, no one has managed to nail him down. The Canadian comic revealed 5 months ago how she stood up to the alleged fiend while making the programme, but stopped short of naming and shaming him publicly. Now she has also revealed how the confrontations, originally thought to have taken place off-camera, were actually filmed as part of the show, but were cut out before it went on air. Katherine, 39, said, "The person I believe very strongly, so do a lot of people believe very strongly as an open secret, is a perpetrator of sexual assault. And I, in front of loads of people in the format of the show, said to this person's face that they were a predator loads of times. I informed him to his face that he was a predator." Now, with that revelation that it took place in the context of a show, it's likely that the individual concerned will have denied it and have just carried on with the show, sitting there and thinking that she's batshit crazy, no doubt, on the assumption that it's accurate and this individual is a narcissist, that they would have asserted control. They would have issued a denial to her, but of course she repeated it, and therefore the direct assertion of control over her would not have worked. They were not in a position to indirectly assert control, because I doubt that they turned to their colleague if they were on some sort of panel show and said, "What the fuck's she going on about?" Or that they whipped out their phone and telephoned their mother and say, "She's at it again, saying nasty things about me," so that their mother supports them. Instead, they would either have walked off set, which is a possibility to withdraw from the threat to control, or would have sat there and in their own heads thought, she's a nutter, she's crazy, and therefore have maintained the denial whilst at the same time thinking that she is deranged, and thus would achieve a sense of control by not engaging with her and jettisoning her in the manner that I've described. The Sun continues, the revelations come out as Katherine was interviewed by Louis Theroux, 52, for his show, which airs on BBC Two on Tuesday night.
He asks her about the story which emerged in July, where she made the initial claims. She replies, "It is very dangerous for us to have this conversation. I'm happy to have it, but it is a litigious minefield. Because lots of people have tried to nail this person down for their alleged crimes, and this person has very good lawyers, so I'm going to put my mortgage on the line by saying who this person is, or entering into conversations like that. We've seen what happens to people who talk about alleged predators. I mean, it's not really my story to tell. No one has perpetrated any sexual assaults against me." She added, "I got criticism for not naming who it was after the fact that I spoke about the original show." Katherine said she was glad she stood up to him regardless of the fact producers decided not to show the confrontations. She said, "It's fine. I still got paid and I still did my job, but I still did it in my way that I felt was fair. This is what we talk about. This is what female comics and probably actresses and women in my industry talk about all the time, because that's the safest way to talk about it. I didn't tell any employer or blow a whistle or do anything at all. I handled it, for lack of a better term, like a man, and said to his face." The comic was asked by Louis if her sources for the claims of sexual assault might not be credible. But she replied, "No, they're really credible. Every time these things are eventually proven, you look at Bill Cosby and you look at Harvey Weinstein and you look at the unmentionable British personality, everybody knew, and they go, everybody knew. I didn't mean to cause like a stir about it. I say things as they are." After bringing up the unmentionable British personality, Louis confirms she is referring sex monster Jimmy Savile. He famously interviewed the DJ and TV host in 2000, but failed to reveal him as the infamous paedophile he was later exposed to be after his death. Discussing potential repercussions, she added, "I think you can be cancelled like if you accuse too many men of sexual assault, and then you're labelled a troublemaker, and people won't book you anymore. I think it's more of a quiet disappearing than a cancellation." Now, what are your views about what Katherine Ryan has to state? She doesn't have any proof. She's not somebody who's a victim herself, but she knows about this person's behaviour, presumably as a consequence of hearsay evidence. She hasn't witnessed it, presumably. She hasn't witnessed the individual assaulting anybody else, but has undoubtedly been told it by other individuals. Is she right to make mention of it, even though she's not directly affected? Is she right to make mention of the fact that she accused this individual of being a predator, and the fact that it's an open secret? Or is this something that she could have kept to herself? Is she making mention of it now because she has perhaps something to promote, and that she's wanted to gain some prominence? And therefore is she engaging in utilising it for her own benefits? Or is it because she actually does care, and she's sick of individuals, such as the ones that have been mentioned earlier, of getting away with it where everybody knew, and is trying to perhaps force the issue so that somebody does raise it further? I'd be interested to know what your observations are in the comments. Returning to the Times article, there are an interesting array of observations that have been made. Anon in Below the Line states, "I'm not sure it's sustainable for unnamed people to be known predators and exposed privately amongst the industry, but these people not to come forward and accuse someone openly and transparently. She says herself, 'I don't have evidence.' And so if that's the case, surely you can't float the possibility otherwise." How's that replies, "A piece of self-promotion that the Times seem to have bought into." DB7050 replies, "What evidence would there be exactly? Not sure what more she can do here. She's keeping his name untarnished, but warning people who might be in harm's way. If he is innocent, he hasn't lost anything. If he is to be avoided, then she has helped the people that need to know avoid him. What more do you want?" Philip Isat writes, "Having been the victim of false allegations that ruined my health, Katherine, I say this to you. If you have no evidence, you should be very careful of breaking the law yourself and ruining the life of an innocent person. Or are you a trained policewoman or lawyer? If you are wrong, I hope you will turn yourself into the police and offer sufficient reparations to the person concerned, sufficient for them to receive long-term counselling help until they are well. I am in my 16th year of severe illness because of someone's false accusations to the police, and complete written exoneration by the police didn't help. Nothing has so far, apart from my relationship with Father God and my wife, who team up to keep me going. So my challenge to you is not theoretical to be shaken off because you entitle yourself as a vigilante. Even if you turn out to be right, you are still wrong for the way that you have behaved." Belal BB, "Tell the police not a podcast. What's that you say, Katherine? You have a new series out on Prime. Could she be more shameless?" Stephen Patterson replies, "She's just been markled. Well done, Belle." CL, "Ruining somebody's reputation without proof. Classy." JPH replies, "If he's unnamed, how has his reputation been ruined?" Craig Ritchie, yes, the good old crucify by media, not report to the police. Modern day media justice. The guy is guilty, must be guilty. Hanging party, report for duty. If you're going to raise this, then have the moral courage to report this to the police and let them make a determination. Then let the court make a determination in front of a jury. Justice must seem to be done. The media don't do justice, although they often think they should. JMB replies, and the media often get it wrong. Something of a can of worms. Invariably, a sexual predator is a narcissist, operating with no recognition of boundaries, no accountability for behaviours, acting in an entitled fashion, seeing people as objects that are there to be utilised consciously or unconsciously for the prime aims, behaving towards these individuals with an absence of emotional empathy. And those convicted sexual predators that have been mentioned previously are indeed those that are narcissists. Is this the case here? We do not know. There's been huge amounts of speculation as to who the individual might be on social media, and no doubt you will have seen some of this and have your own views as to who the individual might be. But instances such as these are very useful for us to look at the dynamic between those that are accused and their behaviours and what they may be, the nature of some of the accusers in terms of being victims, and others that are making false accusations and invariably may well be narcissists utilising the circumstances, again, unconsciously, for the prime aims. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section about these allegations and as a whole where you see this whole dynamic of those that are accused of being sexual predators where their names are not being mentioned. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.